Hey, Six, welcome.
Ignore the pain.
Let me mute me phone. I don't know if you can hear us. Can you hear us, Kaz?
Yeah, I can hear you. I'm just fighting a big dude at the moment.
He finished him! There are too many of them. Find a strong position.
Weird, I can't hear you.
Hold on.
Not sure what's going on.
There you
Oh,
go.
there we go.
Yeah, my microphone wasn't
Hello.
aimed down.
Ah, it's alright.
Will die. Stop.
Yeah. So the voices thing for me, it's you know what you're hearing, that whispering?
Mm-hmm.
That's what I hear all the time.
Okay. I did not know that.
Without pause, there is a constant there's a constant sort of cacophony of voices.
She's hurt. She won't make it.
And the problem I have is I used to have suicidal, like bouts of suicidal paranoia. And the more I know somebody, the more their voice sits in my head.
Oh, wow.
So, because I can understand thought patterns, as you get to know somebody, you know how they speak. So you understand the way they think a bit. So I can have things where I'll go to message you, and in my head I will have multiple conversations with you where your response is negative, and I'm thinking, should I send the message or not? But then I can also have it where it's positive and you're all your usual upbeat self. My brain just does that with everybody. So there's no break from it. It's just there. And I've just learned to live with it. It's just something that's there. I know my voice. I know which voices are mine. I know which voice is mine, and I understand the voices I hear they aren't real. They're not linked to anyone. It's just the negative parts of my brain just throwing out the information.
Hold on a sec, Six. I'm getting a bit of an echo from you. Don't want to interrupt the seriousness, but
no, that's all right. The phone just hadn't muted fully.
yeah. So you go ahead.
Yeah, go for it. No, ask away.
So you hear? Okay, So you hear voices all the time.
Yeah.
And when you say all the time, are you hearing them now?
Yes. Hearing them now saying I shouldn't even be having this conversation.
Ah, okay. I see.
It's like every time you think of something, when you have a thought and you think it through and you're like, maybe I shouldn't say this because it could be taken the wrong way and
right.
all that. I get that from multiple sources at the same time. So one of the voices is legitimately my own voice, the same as you and anybody and anyone who doesn't get this sort of issue. I have the same voice as you going, maybe this isn't the best topic to discuss.
Right.
And I'm aware that I'm very open about what happened in my past and things. I've got no reference point, so I have no problem talking about it. I've got no reference of anything good, so I don't recognize that there's a problem. So I kind of have my voice that tells me that stuff. But then I also have your voice going, why did you say that? You shouldn't have said that on the stream. That's not what the stream's about. And at the same time, I've got Tower Mom's voice going, that's not right. Why are you saying that? That's just wrong. So I get all of that at the same time while thinking my own thoughts, all at the same speed that you think. I have entire conversations in minutes, which is where some of my distraction comes from. Because sometimes it's hard to do something because it's just you've kind of got to filter through the noise to get to the relevant bits. And usually it is normally just my own negative and positive sort of sides of my brain dealing with things. And I know you would never tell me I was out of order. I know Town One would never be horrible to me in that respect. But at the same time, I have to have that argument and that battle in my head to go, yeah, all right, I can say this, it'll be fine. Just tell people because it's what you do. You get the knowledge out there.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it's constant. It never stops. So you imagine like doing a test. I've already got issues with remembering because of my fibro, and then I have a voice in the back of my head telling me that I'm useless anyway. So you try and remember stuff, and then you've got this voice going, "Yeah, you're never going to remember this. Why are you even bothering? You're no good at what you do."
Is it always negative?
I've never had it. No. I have the positives as well. So I'm unlike Talmom. I have negative and I have positive. It's just the positive is louder. The negative is louder. But the positive side is the positive side of the argument with say yourself and saying you shouldn't have said this in the stream 6. The positive side of that is you being you and going, well, thanks for sharing, and I'm glad you felt you could, you felt you could open up because that's what you're like. That's who you are. So I have that voice. It's just it gets drowned out because the negative voice tries to take over. And it's it's kind of like a constant thing. And eventually, I'm 45. I've just got used to it. It's there so much that I'm used to the noise and I'm sort of used to the chaos that entails with it. And I just get on with it. But it used to really mess me up because that's what the paranoia side, that's when my bouts of paranoia kicked in, that's what it fed off. It fed off those negative voices go on. And I hear the voice, it's not like it's just a thought, I literally hear someone else's voice in my own head. And it's that throws you, and that's what the paranoia bit used to just be driven to, it just wanted the noise to stop. Because you reach a point where you're like, I just can't take any more. I can't hear anything else. There's too much in there already. And it got. But I learned how to cope. I learned how to sort of deal with it and coping techniques for it. I'm really lucky with Lynn because Lynn's a very good balance point for me. She's very good at leveling me out. So I'm lucky in that respect. Hey, Mom. I saw you joined.
Hello, gentlemen. Yeah, I didn't want to interrupt you because what you were talking about for your perspective is really important, so.
That's all right.
I
figured you might need to say something.
I have a quick question on that. So, 6, your own voice, and I don't know if the definitions here will have to change from your perspective versus mine. For me, I have so depending if you want to for me, I have a voice in my mind that is my voice. There are other influences and things, but there is a voice that is mine. And you said that there were voices that were yours but were also distracting. Do you have like a clear beacon like voice that you're like, that one is me? Or
yes.
Okay. And I suppose that your connection to that voice gets strained because of the distraction and doubt and whatever, maybe even the trickery of the other ones, right?
So my normal voice, my normal personality is I have not in a negative way because it's often construed that way, but I have what's classed as a dominant, assertive personality type. And that voice is very loud. It is very strong. It's very clear. It is the voice that just tells me I'm amazing and ignore the rest of them. Like that's where my unassailable ego comes from. It's nothing other than me going, I'm awesome. I don't care. And that voice is what does that. But that voice can be drowned out by everything else sometimes. And what happens when that voice gets drowned out is that voice gets angry because it's not particularly happy at not being in control. Because that's naturally my personality type. It's one of the reasons why I can't remember so much of my childhood, because my personality type can't cope with what was done. And this sounds really stupid, and I know this is stupid, but
I don't think it's
my
stupid.
Personality.
No, it's never stupid. Never.
Is my personality type will argue that I should have fought more. I should have fought them off. I should have fought back against my abusers more. I was a kid.
Yeah.
You know, I was a little kid. I was a young child. I was a young adult. I was in no position to do these things, and I know that this is true. But my personality is so strong that it's like I don't care. You didn't do enough, and so I've literally like my brain blacks out the things that I can't control or the things that I couldn't accept. So it gets
I
drowned
mean,
out
that in of
because that
itself
stuff
is
tries
a
to come
coping
back.
mechanism.
Yeah, exactly. You black out the things you can't cope with. So like probably 80% of my life up until the age of about 14 is a black hole. It's just gone. The things that I do remember, most of them are negative.
Right.
But
Yeah.
yeah, it's
quick,
just something you get used to.
A quick follow-up question on that.
Ask away.
Can you change that voice or any of those voices? Safe is saying, you know, that he has an internal voice in his head, but he can make it sound however he wants, but it's still him.
Right. So normal self, like your normal self, what is it? Conversation is something that you can adjust. I know for me, I have that normal self conversation, you know, my own thoughts, my own voice, but the other voice that I have is a completely separate voice, and it's almost like dissociative identity disorder or multiple personality disorder for me, but it's not like what you expect with most like dissociative identity disorders is like my own physical representation of myself will change based upon that voice, but for me it doesn't go that far. So I have a completely separate voice in my head that's a male voice, that's all my negativity and all my self-abuse and self-hatred and, you know, low self-worth and stuff like that. And that's the manifestation of it, but it's not a separate personality, as in like I don't change the way that I act or the way that I talk physically or outward. So that voice just, it never changes for me. Like I can, like my own self-thoughts, I can make funny like funny tones of my voice, or, you know, do my impersonations that I normally do outwardly, you know, to try and have some sort of funniness going on, but that's completely separate. It's a completely separate thing for me.
So tell Mom. Apologies if you don't necessarily understand the phrasing that I'm using. Do you mask or do you clone?
Both.
Because
of my autism, I have had to clone in order to learn like social norms and stuff. But then I also mask everything that has to do with my autism at the same time.
Okay, definitions, please.
So masking is basically where you put on a front and pretend you're something else.
Right.
So, like if you're really depressed, you put on a mask that you're very happy, so people can't see. Cloning is where you you see somebody with a trait that you want and you copy it. And so
think of masking like this. When you work in a customer service job, you have the way that you are at home, and then you have the way that you are when you're dealing with customers, where you have to pretend to be happy and, you know, happy to please them and get them what they want and stuff like that. That's a form of masking. So anyone who's ever worked in a customer service job, bagging groceries, working in a clothing store, or, you know, working as a cashier, that's a form of masking. But for some of us, we do it all the time because that's the only way for us to cope.
Now,
Yeah.
okay. Question on that. Coping. External or internal? Do you, I mean, I'm sure that you mask or clone so that you can either integrate better with society or feel like you're better integrating with society, but do you need to do either of those just to feel better about yourself, regardless of other people?
Sometimes. Sometimes
Sometimes, yeah.
it's easier to sometimes you need to hide from the thing that you know is hitting you. So you kind of you pick the person that's going to be the strongest for that issue, and you clone it, and you make yourself it.
Hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Cloning's like
Oh,
you'll have seen.
I get them.
It's like the talented Mr. Ripley type thing. It's you spot a person, you recognize it, you
yeah.
become it.
I mean, a
It's
simplistic example is you see someone you admire or you're jealous of, and you act like they are, so that you can be more like they are. That's a very like
Exactly.
yeah.
That's exactly what it is. And it can stretch. Cloning can stretch too. Literally, can become part like movement, and you try and mimic how they carry themselves. So if you want to portray confidence, and you really just it's not in you to do it, and your confidence has hit the floor,
Mm.
and you see somebody, and you've all seen this person. You know, they walk down the street, and it's like every step's like I own this path now because I've stood on it. You know, I've touched this door. It's my door, and they're not necessarily in a bad way, but you know those super confident people, just nothing. You see that, and you go, I need to be that. And then if you know them, you'll try and mimic the behaviors. You'll try and learn the walk and try and walk that way, so that you can become something you're not, so that you can hide from the thing that's going to get you. Because in your own head, you kind of struggle. You're always kind of fighting to be in control.
You know,
Because I have a lot of stuff that doesn't want me to be in control. It wants to be in control, and it's one of the reasons why I have zero contact with my family is because they make all of that side of things that much worse. So I avoid the triggers because it's just easier to not have to deal with it than it is to constantly have to refight what they're going to do to you, if you know what I mean.
it must be a it must be a so I just want to make a bit of a point that it must be an extremely fascinating and challenging field to be, I don't know what the right word is, a child psychologist or something, because children,
I can speak on that.
Well-
Both of my parents are child psychologists.
well, I don't even, yeah, I mean, I don't know if that's the right term, but here's the point I'm making. Children mask and clone all the time. They
Yes.
you know, like they use it to learn, like, oh, you know, my big brother's getting extra like privileges, I should act good like them, so that, you know, like they oh, that everybody likes that person, I'm gonna be like them, I'm gonna be this when I grow up. Like there's that constant you know, there's a constant stuff like that. And then when, especially depending on the parents you have, you might mask as well. Like you might be like, well, you know, I'm really sad, but if I whine, I won't get dessert, so I'm gonna, you know. And I know I'm taking them and making them very simple examples, but I'm just thinking like, plus kids' inability to communicate well must be really fascinating and frustrating to try and, children are so mutable, you know what I mean? Like they're like, I don't know, they're not like a non-Newtonian fluid. They're just constantly shifting and changing. And how to differentiate between they're just growing up versus they seem to be moving down a path that I've identified as being, you know, atypical or neurodiverse or something. Anyway, I just wanted to make that point, that listening to all of this is making me think about how, not only how difficult it must be, just period, for you guys on a day-to-day basis and for everyone else, but how difficult it is to even identify it or even speak to it, so that you can, you know, so you can identify what's going on and how to cope.
Well, I'll say I've been very lucky in my friends and my support group as an adult that, people like Munchkin's dad and his wife, they've all gone through similar things and deal with similar things to myself. So they've been able to help me, and I've been able to help them through their struggles. So it makes things a lot easier, but at the same time, there was a very long time where I was going through all my stuff by myself,
Yeah.
and so it was bad. It was very dark for a very long time for me.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I didn't know that. I didn't know that it was that present for you both.
Mm. Oh,
I
yeah.
mean, well, I mean, we've talked about things, but it's a lot of the stuff, Town Mom, that you've expressed to me has sounded like both short term and long term, but not medium term. And what I mean by that is like, intense moments, or or living with a a lens or perspective that you need to deal with, not like a constant chipping voice. And for you, Six, I didn't know that at all. Like, you've never quite mentioned it. Anytime you've mentioned stuff along this regard, it I mean, I'm color me ignorant, but it sounded more like a like a fibro thing, not a anything else. It seemed like more of a physical thing affecting you mentally, not a mental thing affecting you every way.
Well, fibro affects numerous cognitive functions anyway.
Well, and that's it. That's I'm not trying to
and
I'm not trying to be your doctor and
No,
put
no,
all your
no.
problems in one basket, but I'm just saying that my ignorance of the situation made me kind of yeah. Also,
It's
random point before I come back to you guys for a second.
Mhm.
In most video games of this type where you're looking over the shoulder, are you able to look into the character's eyes? Because I am not able
No.
to. And
No.
okay.
No.
I
That's
it
also
was-
part of Senua, is that part of the way that the character is she does have some autistic traits, and that she will never,
that
when you're playing as her, I've got it up on my phone right now, she will never look directly into the camera except for the cutscenes, and the only reason she's looking into the camera is because she's actually looking at Dylan.
Right.
She's not looking at you.
Yeah, see, that's what I thought, but then I'm like, am I just reading into it too much? Because, that's very
No,
possible.
it was written in. It was.
Yep.
It's part of how they wanted the game to be.
Yep. Exactly.
Well,
So,
is there something that others should know that or that we should do or not do?
No, nothing you can do.
I disagree. There are definitely things I can do that can make things worse. So what's that, and what's the opposite of that?
Well,
In my case, you can't make it worse for me, because there are certain things that on my end with my internal voice that only are triggered by certain things. And so none of those things actually have to do with you, luckily. So you can't you cannot cause any sort of trigger with me, luckily. But there are other situations that can outside of that. So
very, very little can trigger me, because the problem I have is the voices in my head. But I'm both. This is one of my awesome counselors speaking here. I'm both blessed and cursed, because I'm intelligent enough to understand what's wrong with me, and I'm intelligent enough to understand that it's not real, and I'm intelligent enough to logically calm myself down as long as I've got a couple of people in my life that can act as a rock when needed. And I have that.
right.
I have
Yeah.
people I can go to. But I'm also cursed for the exact same reasons that I'm blessed. Because I know there's nothing anyone can do. The more I get to know you, the more your voice builds in my head. And there's nothing you can do but be yourself. Because the negative part of my brain will use your voice in some way to manipulate. what I'm hearing. It's just the way it works. It's unfortunately
So you're haunted by your friends, is what you're saying.
pretty much, yeah. I've been complained at because I don't necessarily get upset at funerals. But as you can probably imagine, that in my head, people don't go away.
Mm-hmm.
And I have I don't have weird beliefs, but I have beliefs that are not necessarily always the norm. And I believe that as long as you remember somebody, they don't truly die. So I never lose people, and therefore I don't get as upset as other people. And I spent all of my childhood knowing that every day could be my last day on earth, that there was a very good chance I could be killed. And there was been attempts made on my life, so death doesn't really...
Because he's a spy, Chad.
It doesn't really frighten me, and it doesn't really intimidate me like some people are. I understand that it's a part of life, and I've lived with it the fear of it for so long that it doesn't faze me. So the more I know people, in some ways, the more I know people, the better. Because when they're not around, I can still use their voices to help bring me down.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So at the same time, I hear your voice negatively. I can also, because I know you guys think, I can use that to positively go, yeah, but you're talking rubbish, behave. You know,
Right.
and the same thing that puts the negative is the same thing that puts the positive. It's just, it's in my brain and I can't get it out.
Yeah. All right. Well,
Right.
I have 2 messages for the me in your brain. One, shut up. It's my voice. I do the talking. All right. The only time that's cloned is in my own brain. And number 2, if you're saying something negative, shut up times 2, because that's not what I do. I'm not even negative when I'm negative. I'm constructively negative. I'm more, I don't know, yeah, I don't know, maybe, you know.
Same for me, Six. Like, don't let my voice in your head bring you down. I will be honest though. Like, if you're ever like, I'm the kind of person that like, I will kick your butt if you're saying, oh well, you wouldn't really do that, right? Well, yeah, I would. I'll kick your butt. I'll kick your butt. I'll kick you into gear.
You've witnessed it, Tom. You've literally, we've messaged and you've witnessed it at work. You just didn't realize that's what it was doing.
No, really.
Remember, I put a comment on Twitter about masking.
Oh my
and
gosh,
you didn't see it, and I panicked and I messaged you and said, have I said something wrong? That was it.
Yes.
Physically at play. That was it. Literally doing what it does. Go on, Tao Mom hasn't answered.
Gosh.
You shouldn't have said that. Why have you said that? You've upset Tao Mom now. She's not going to talk to you. You've messed it up. That you've really upset. That is what the negative does. And all it was is you didn't see the message. There was no malice in it. But literally my brain drove me to have to message you and go, is everything all right? I haven't said something wrong about, because I didn't mean to. I'm really sorry if I did. It's that is the thing in my head going, you messed that up. Why'd you say that?
Okay, number 3.
Oh, man.
Number 3, you know how verbose I am. So if I haven't answered, it's because I'm busy. There's no other reason. I'm very direct with people. I know it doesn't mean anything, because your brain is your brain and it's going to do whatever the hell it wants. But if you can if I can give you a kernel of truth to hang on to, then maybe you have more ammunition in your favor. I don't know. That's how I think about it. But that's a very external, my own perspective.
No, but you see, it's kind of weird, but with the way it affects me. It's you being you that counteracts my brain being my brain. It's like I know how Safe thinks a little bit because we talk in chat, we talk when we're in parties, and we game. So the more Safe is being him, the easier it is for my positive voices to quietly go, Safe wouldn't say that. Safe wouldn't behave that way. It's so you
That
going,
makes
I'm
sense.
very, you being like, I'm very verbose, it takes me a while to type, I'm probably busy, and stuff like that. Although it sounds like it's probably nothing to you, in my brain's able to go, yeah, well, Kaz will be busy.
Yeah, if
You know
I
for a fact he's probably
Right.
typing a response because it takes him a while.
if I have
It's-
if I have a problem with anyone, and I mean anyone,
Sorry, Sir, if I picked on you there, it was just 'cause your name
God,
popped up on the screen.
the devil, my parents, my fiance, my cat. If I have a problem with anyone, I tell them. And I'm very good at diplomacy, so I'm able to tell you to your face that I have a problem with you without saying that in so many words. So if I don't say anything, then I have no problem with you, or I haven't seen it.
Exactly.
And again,
Right.
I know that telling you this isn't
Or
going
it's
to
the
mean it.
time difference for me.
Yeah, or and I know that telling you this doesn't really it's not going to fix anything because your brain will do whatever it wants to do. But again, if you need external factors that can be made internal ammunition to fight back against that, I'll give you whatever you need because only I
It's all
speak
good,
for me. Unless someone does a fairly good
It's-
impression, then we'll see.
There's a scary number of people out there like us that just we don't talk about it because you learn to live with it. Like you were on about as a child, kids masking, kids clone. That's where it comes from. You just don't. The point where you start to mature and normally stop, and your core personality is built in because your very very core personality kicks in around the age of 5 and 6. Like the fundamental. This is who you are. Fundamentally, I'm a very upbeat, happy-go-lucky kind of. I'm very much the surfer type. Like I'm very laid back and yeah, whatever.
Wow.
Nothing can change that. Nothing can ever change that. I'm very much I'm into BMXing. I'm into all of that type of stuff. Life's a party and have fun and just chill. So they couldn't knock that out of me. But then as you hit your teenage years, the rest of your personality is supposed to solidify. And you mask and clone less. For people like me and for Tower Mom and people like that, we just don't stop that bit. That bit just keeps going. It just gets more complex because the more, I suppose, the more true your brain becomes, the more capable it is of running this thing. It's like a computer. Because obviously IT. Sorry, people. I know I keep bringing it up. It's
No,
like a
it's
computer.
a great analogy.
You have a PC that can run, say, 10 programs at once without any performance loss. But when your brain matures, it becomes a server, and a server can run 1,000 programs before it even begins to slow down. It's running hundreds and hundreds of things that you never see. Cloning and masking, when you take it from a PC to a server or to a network, which is effectively what happens as you get older. As you can imagine, you all know what a network works like. So that's how complex cloning and masking can become. That's why I hear so many voices, because my brain can function at that level and go, I know Kaz talks like this, I know Lynn talks like this, I know my mum talks like that, I know this person talks like that, I know my boss speaks this way, I know he acts like that. And Safe asked the question earlier, we never had a chance to get it. And thank you everyone for saying thanks for sharing. I don't mind.
Yes, thank you for being so positive about us sharing this, guys.
Safe asked, does it work with non-auditory? It's actually worse for me, because without your voice, I lose a lot from the conversation.
Right. Yeah,
So
and then you leave room for doubt or misinterpretation or.
Yeah. So the ideal situation is me sat in a room with the person, because then I've got body language, I've got audio cues. That's all. That information reinforces in your head everything you know. So the more sensory input you've got, the better it is. But it's also a double-edged sword. I don't like big events. I don't like big gatherings because it's sensory overload as my brain tries to absorb a room full of body language at the same time as a room full of audio.
Yep.
When you go in it, when you go into the thrall room and they just surround you and you hear it everywhere.
Yeah.
That's my brain in a party situation. That's my brain.
Mm-hmm.
That's what it becomes like. It's just a cacophony of noise, and
Yep.
I just avoid them.
Yeah.
If I can't have body
Another.
language, voice is important because voice in tone. Sorry, Tom, voice.
Oh no.
Voice implies a lot that you can gain from it and understand. But once you lose voice and body language, there's, as you say, Kaz rightly said, there's room for doubt. There's room to misinterpret because you're relying on your brain to translate what you've read in that person's voice and have it make logical sense to you that they would speak that way. And if it can't, you have an issue because then the whole Tower Mom thing, because Tower Mom didn't reply and I was trying to figure it out, I then panicked and thought, I better double check now because I think I've made a mistake. And all it was time zones. Tower Mom wasn't, I don't think you were even up to see it, were you? I think I'd sent it so early in the day.
Yeah, I think it was like super early, and then I didn't get the chance to actually check my messages until like my break time at work. So it was like there was that huge time difference.
And because there was no cues for me to go off, then it gets worse because then you think, well, you know, especially when you know someone's got a problem and you're relating to the problem, because then you think, oh, maybe I shouldn't have mentioned it, maybe I shouldn't be as close to them as that, and I shouldn't have involved myself in that. It's private, they don't want me around, and all of that stuff swirls in your head. So you constantly. So when I say to you all, like, I'm free to listen, this is why I'm free to listen, because I have this crap in my head. So when you've got problems, I can just sit and listen and zone out of my problems and focus on you and just let you get just let you get it off your chest. And it doesn't.
Exactly.
You're not going to do anything to me. You're not going to upset me in any way. But it's, I have a lot of experience of negative things in the world that kind of helps me sometimes give people a friendly ear when they need it. And I'm non-judgmental because, well, I'm just non-judgmental. It's part of who I am. I'll be honest, you probably do know someone, they just either they don't talk about it like me because they're just used to it, or they may not fully be aware that they've got it themselves. Like
or they're like me and they were ashamed of their differences for a really long time and are probably still ashamed of it. There's a lot of stigma for mental illness, and particularly the kind of stuff that we're talking about here, psychosis and voices and like schizophrenia and stuff like that. There's still a lot of stigma associated with this. And something I do want to mention is, I don't know about you, Six, but for me, these are not auditory hallucinations, okay? What I'm hearing in my head is it's in my head. It is limited strictly to my brain space. Unlike with people who have schizophrenia, they actually hear the voices, like it'll for them it'll be an actual hallucination where to them it sounds like there's like their mom and their sister are arguing down the hallway in a completely different room. Like it'll literally be muffled, or it'll sound like the person is standing right next to them.
Yeah,
That's
there's
an
a
auditory
external.
hallucination, but I know for me it's in my brain space. It's like myself conversation in my head.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
nobody, I would never say to somebody, "Oh, I heard you down the hall the other day. What were you saying?" For I that would never happen. However, I would say something like, "Well, my con man brain was, beating me up the other day and I needed to take a break," kind of a thing, you know?
Yeah, like I'm all of my stuff's in my head. Sometimes it makes me feel like my head's splitting, to be honest. There's so
Exactly.
much in there, but it I'm lucky enough that I know what it is. I know that they're not real. They don't influence my behavior any more than your emotions can influence yours. It's like
Right.
when you have doubt, it affects me the same way. It's just I've got another force. The bad habit I've got, and it comes because I used to be locked in bedrooms on my own with just a mattress. So growing up as a kid, And so I used to externally speak. So I used to talk to myself effectively. But
Yeah.
I talk to the voices in my head, and I still do it to this day. If I'm not paying attention, or I'm getting depressed, I will literally talk to
Yep.
myself, and to anybody that hears it, it's a one-sided conversation.
Exactly. Yep. That's how it
If
is
I'm
for me too.
if I'm really, really depressed, then I do both sides of the conversation aloud, which confuses people if they hear it, because it's almost like two separate people using my voice, because I'm able to construct arguments based on the how well I know the individual. But I mean, like, I've got to be really depressed to start doing the full conversations. Like, it's been a long, long time since I've been that bad. But I used to do it a lot. It was,
So
it was
a semi silly observation I want to point out.
Uh-oh.
No, it's not even an observation about you guys. So I'll come back to the serious stuff in a second, but in the show House, there was an episode where he was like, I don't know, he was feeling guilty about someone who died, and he was like basically being haunted by them or something, and and they were talking to him, and they did something brilliant I've never seen done in any other. There's the trope in a television show of a character talking to another character that other people can't see, whether it's a ghost or a vision or other dimensions or whatever. You always have this case where they have to be quiet or they have to be careful because other people will hear that they're talking to no one. In House, he gets mad. He goes into his office. He pulls out a Bluetooth device and puts it in his ear. And for the rest of the episode,
I have done that.
Yeah, and I apologize for taking your very serious thing and like going to something else, but I thought like just as a storytelling or like a prop device, I thought it was brilliant, to be honest. And I was just thinking yeah.
No, it's a genuine.
It's a coping mechanism.
It's a genuine coping technique.
Yeah.
If I'm out the house on my own, I always have headphones on. I hate I have to have charge on my phone.
Mm-hmm.
So that I can wear it, and then if I start, because sometimes I'll start and I'll forget. Like I just forget I'm on a bus.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll start to, especially if I'm tired or my pain levels are up. And that's one of the other deciding factors for me is the impact of fibro on my life, especially pain-wise. There gets a point where you're in so much pain, you're just too tired to focus on anything other than just getting through the pain.
Getting through it, yeah.
Yep.
So that habit can then slip, and I'll be walking around the shops talking to myself. So if I have a headset,
and the easiest way to hide it is to have headphones or Bluetooth in.
If you've got a headset in, and you've got your phone in your hand with charge on it, and people see you messing about on your phone, they just assume you're in a call.
Exactly.
It's that human tendency to shun anything that is like just out of a variance of what they might consider normal or strange. Like I could see why such a trait developed. Like Uglug over there is acting strange. They have brain disease. Hit them with a rock until they're dead. Like back in caveman days. Like I could see where that might have come from, and I could see why socially it's baked in. But it is like one of the most harmful passive things that we all do. Where and like even if we're putting aside real problems, real challenges that that you've discussed today. Even aside from that, how many like brilliant or creative or shy or just whatever people have been bludgeoned socially because they can't be themselves. They can't be a little bit different, Oh, I don't know. I used to, I still do this, but I will often talk in choose your own adventure prose. So what I mean by this is that I will start speaking and I will give you 3 different ways that this sentence could go. And then maybe a couple of those have 2 different sentences that they could go. And if you hear all of it and your brain can retain all of the different paths, I've just told you like 5 complicated paragraphs but in 5 sentences that were split up over it. And you know, people would make me feel bad for doing that, and it's like, it's not, what I'm doing is not wrong, it's just different.
No.
And you know, I'm not trying to compare what I'm talking about what you're talking about. I'm just saying that even though it's like, it's done even on a micro not even that different of a variant level, so I can only imagine how it's magnified when what you're describing is more intense or less typical.
People are scared of mental health. No.
Yeah.
The problem is, like, you say that sentence and it sounds like people are horrible. Most people, there are some who are scared of mental health and they're nasty about it. Most people are scared of mental health, not because they think they're going to catch it, or they just don't know what to say. They don't know how to cope. And you know,
yeah.
There was a comment made in the chat earlier that we are stubborn creatures at our core. We don't like not being in control of a situation. Like, I have to warn people, when people ask about my past, I have to warn people, like, I'm going to be very, very blasé about this, and it's going to freak you out more how blasé I am than how bad the things I'm about to tell you are.
Well, to be
right.
Yeah, to be honest, I would rather you, well, as long as I perceive that the relaxed nature is because you have experience with it and not because you're not taking it seriously, right? I would personally feel reassured that you are blasé, personally, because it means that you've been through it, you know about it, you have coping mechanisms. If you came to me and were just like stress times a million after dealing with it for so long, I would feel worse. But I could see how other people might, you know, they've never heard of it before, they've never experienced it, and then they hear it from you and they're like, you know, it'd be like it'd be like telling a child about global warming, and they go, "Why are you freaking out about this?" You're like, "Well, I am."
And what I'm about to tell you is told the way I always tell it. So, like, I'm not putting this on for the conversation chat, but literally, my mom's boyfriend at the time, possibly the very good chance this is the man who killed my father. He tried to shoot me with a shotgun. He put it to the back of my head. So I was about 5, I think 4 or 5. I wasn't very old. He was splitting up with my mom. He was convinced I was his kid, and he just decided if he couldn't have me, no one would. And he was going to shoot me. They talked him down, but to this day, I don't like things on the back of my neck. I have my hair long because I don't like getting a cut. It freaks me out. I don't like anything touching it. Don't wear fastened collars because they creep me out. And and literally, the dude tried to shoot me. Put a hot shot. He fired it at my mum. Then he put the hot barrel against my neck and freaked me out. And that's just, you know, that's one of the things. But I have no reference point. Like, my older brother is more messed up than I am because he had a good life before the abuse started. I was 15 months old. I have no recollection of anything but this. So I'm blasé about it because without a reference point of your own, there's no understanding. And what freaks some people out is like, yeah, but you know people have a good life, so how can you be so blasé? And it's like, yeah, I know other people have a good life, but I don't know how that works. I don't know what that is. I just know that people have it.
Yep.
You know, it's like saying that man over there has got a mansion, so you must know what it's like to be in a mansion. Well, no, because I live in a hut. Just because somebody else has got something doesn't entail knowledge to you.
Yeah.
So.
Right.
So
that's why it's so hard when people say, "Oh, well, just pull yourself up." You know, why can't you just smile? It's like,
yeah.
Well, I have no reference for that.
Yeah.
Like, just like with you, Six, I have the same kind of thing where when I talk about the abuse that I went through as a child, like, people are devastated for me, and it's like, well, I mean, that was a long time ago, and I went
Yeah.
through a lot of therapy. But I also have come to the terms with the fact that none of it was my fault. But people still get devastated about it, and that's one of the first things I have to tell people when I'm in a relationship is like, I'm going to tell you things, and my reaction to them is not at all going to match what you think I should be reacting to it, but that's because I have a different point of reference than you.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah. Yeah.
I remember. I remember in high school, someone came to the school to talk about they were legally blind, and they were talking about how the process was slow and it developed over time. And they didn't realize until they were playing hockey, and they got side checked, and the coach was like, "How did you not see him coming?" And it's because his vision was he had tunnel vision, and he didn't know, and it was narrower, getting narrower and narrower and narrower, and he just thought that's what you could see. That's what that's what everyone could see is, whatever, 30 degrees or whatever it is, instead of 150 degrees or whatever it is, right? So I feel like it's like that as well with perception and how how we're seeing things externally, how we're processing things internally, because I had no idea. I mean, both you and the description for this game and some reviews I read were talking about how it's very well treatment of this, but that's why I was saying in the chat, I was like, you got to tell me what you're relating to, because I'm getting a different experience from it. I'm getting it from a spectator's experience in a way. I mean, like, I can understand, like, when they start whispering and you hear all these countering thoughts, like, I can get that's a troubling thing. But, like, to actually be told, no, I'm dealing with that right now. Like, as we're talking, I can hear it happening right now. Like, that's something that I personally needed to be told, because that's not something I deal with. And I just feel like more people need to have these kinds of conversations, because regardless of how intense it is, and I apologize because I'm using a lot of like non-localized external metaphors to discuss this, but I think it helps. At least it helps me talk about it. I used to be a tutor. I used to help people learn math and physics and stuff like that. And I always believed that as long as you understood the subject and the person you were teaching, you could teach anyone anything. And you hear people talking about like, well, I don't get math. And I'm like, okay, but you know about like damage perks in the Crucible or something. It's the same thing. Just change what you're talking about. I literally taught my cousin how to do math because I related it to shopping. She couldn't add, but she could do taxes.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, and I taught, so I you learn a different conversation, you learn a different way of reaching these people, and I feel like that with this, and obviously it's hard to do this en masse, and there's so many different variations. It might be hard to do it like in an actual like it's like a academic or educational experience, but I mean, I feel like every person. Every time you apply for a job, you have a different resume and a different cover letter. And I feel like every person, you just take in their resume and you go, oh, okay, this is what you suffer from. I don't suffer from that at all. But now I understand. And now I have, maybe some questions are exchanged, some research is done. And then you can just move forward and go, oh, okay, so that behavior, one, is not that, like, it's not imaginative anymore. You now know you now understand it. You know it exists as a thing on a spectrum that you have to be mindful of. And at the same time, now you know a little bit more about how to interact with people like that. And I think a positive that comes out of that, besides, just human decency and not shaming this kind of stuff, is there's probably ways that teams are better built or coordinated because you understand. Like, a lot of times you hear about people with autism and it's or like ADHD, and it's like, it's almost like if you imagine if you boil a human down to a bunch of like stats that you can like raise or lower. Some people are like off the chain with certain stats and they're just trash at other things. Whereas like your, I don't know, whatever normal means, but your like prototypical human might be like flat across the board. You have other people who are like, I could do 7 book reports in a night, but I can't do the dishes. You know, right? And I just feel like if we understood that a little bit better, not only would we, just be able to get along and understand that and reduce accidental or purposeful stress from one person to another, but you'd actually be able to just, you'd be able to coexist. Like if knowing what I now know about you both enables me to better understand what situations to not walk into or how to better handle a conversation or or whatever. Again, it's not only a sense of just decency and respect, it's also a matter of just better integrating people into your lives. And I don't know, I find it, I always find it fascinating and horrible when something can be done to just help people, but also even to help yourselves, and people still don't do it. It's like you could just do this thing and things will be better. But nah, you're just gonna be a jerk about it because it's easier, I guess.
That's why I was so happy when I pulled up the stream and I saw that you were playing Senua. Because I mean, you and I we've talked about that, about the fact that you've wanted to understand more, the perspectives of mental health and stuff like that. And I'm like, this is the perfect way to introduce you to that. Because it not only from the gameplay mechanic, but also being able to talk with you more about why certain things in the game are the way they are and what that has to do with me and others.
Yeah,
it's opening up more to the friendship, in my opinion.
yeah.
Sorry, I'm reading the questions. No, it's this game's awesome because like it's really weird, but you know when the game goes foggy and you can't say anything, and you're trying to say something, and no matter how forward you go, it doesn't come into focus. That's fibro fog. That's my brain. Like, when you
and
all
that's my
seen
depression fog. That's when I
you,
get into my hole.
yeah. You've all in chat. You've all seen it. You've all heard me do it. I'll be talking in mid-sentence. I will forget a word, like just bang, it's gone. And I need Kaz to figure out what it is I'm talking about and go, is it this? And well, yeah, that's the one. That's the thing. That's what that fog's like. That fog will just suddenly descend, and I can't remember the thing I wanted to say, or I can't remember the thing I got up to do. And like it, there's times where I take 2 words and I try and say them at the same time, and it will come out as some random thing. Sometimes it's hilarious. Other times it's just annoying.
Thankfully,
I do random things. I've woke up once, screamed Lord of the Rings, laid down my back to sleep. Genuinely no idea why I did it.
I mean, why wouldn't you? I don't see anything wrong with that.
I think I was going to tell the dog to behave because he was on the bed and scratching, I think, and I sat up in bed and Lynn told us I screamed Lord of the Rings to the top of my voice, laid down, went back to sleep.
I mean, I do that all the time now. Sorry, Lord of the Rings.
I wanted to mention something. Safe asked a really important question in the chat. He said, is there anything that people without, our circumstances can show themselves or say, to help? Is there any pattern of speech that makes it easier? I know for me, if somebody doesn't understand something, do what we're doing. Ask. Just be like, hey, I'm not sure I understand this completely. Can you help me, understand you more? Can you talk about it? Do you feel comfortable talking about it? Just what you're doing, Kat, saying, hey, come on in. If you guys feel comfortable talking about it, let's talk about it.
There's a thing that people do. Not everyone does it, but a lot of people do it. Not a bad thing. It's not a negative thing. They're trying to help, but it's the most annoying thing in the world, and it tends to make me misbehave and be a brat.
Oh,
And what happens, and I do it on purpose because I'm trying to make people get angry and lose their temper. And people find out about my past, and instantly their view of me is changed. Doesn't matter how
yeah.
nice it doesn't matter how much they've thought of me, and it's not negatively, but they instantly look at me with pity.
Yeah,
Feel
please don't do
sorry
that.
for me, right? And I know it comes from a good place. It truly does. When people pity you for your upbringing, like your childhood when it's bad, it comes from the best place of all. It really does. I'm not lying. It comes from the best place. It's absolute somebody desperately trying to empathize and understand and care and look after you, right? But the problem is it changes how you behave and it changes how you speak.
Yes.
And it's a negative effect. And what it is I then can't say anything wrong and I can't do anything wrong. Right? I can be horrible and someone will kick off and somebody will know about me, will tell me, go, leave him alone. You don't get to have a go at him. You don't know what he's been through, so just cut him some slack. It's like, no, don't cut me some slack. If I'm an idiot or relative swear word, if I'm being an asshole, then tell me I am. Because I'm a human, I'm going to get it wrong sometimes.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I've had people, I've literally had people have a go at somebody and almost render them in tears when they explode and start telling them about my childhood and why they're a terrible person. It's like, well, first of all, they didn't know. And second of
That's
all,
my story to tell, not yours.
like, if I appreciate what you're trying to do, but if I'm being an idiot, I'm being an idiot. If I'm being rude, I'm being rude. Pity doesn't count because what was done a long time ago. And while it still has impact on my life and will forever have impact on my life, it doesn't entitle me to be an asshole about it and be horrible to people about it. If anything, it should teach me to be a better person, to strive to be all of the things that those abusers weren't. And
Yep.
And one of the reasons a lot of people don't speak about it, and this is relevant to Safe's point, is as soon as you pity me, I can't get rid of that. I can't make you not. I can't make you stop doing that. You will always do it, and it always comes from a nice place. I've lost friends because of it. Because they can't cope. They don't know how to cope because they keep trying to fix what they can't fix.
Yeah.
And it gets to the point where you feel so much frustration because you can't fix it that it physically hurts you and it mentally drains you and upsets you to the point that you have to avoid me. And I know this because I've had a friend that I lost and eventually was able to reconnect with who explained why they fell out with me. And like they all they wanted to do was make me feel better. They just, at that point in my life, nothing made me feel better. I was in a bad place. I had to work through it. But you're going to do it to some degree. Everybody does it to some degree. If you're a good human being, you can't help but feel sorry for somebody who's been through bad stuff. But what you've got to do is not let it influence how you treat them. You still treat them the same way you would treat somebody who hadn't been through it. If they're an idiot to you and then mean to you, pull them on it. If they're being lazy and not pulling their weight, don't let them get away with it. Just say,
Yeah,
get your backside into gear, crack on.
I feel like it's a currency where it's like rather than pity, you take that currency and you turn it into empathy, right? So it's like like I don't feel pity for you. I mean, it sucks, sure, and that's the amount of pity that I feel, that you have to deal with this, period. And also, I don't, and you do, and that's, there's that feeling. But I'm gonna try to use that and turn that into patience, communication, understanding. If you just suddenly go, like, if you and I are talking about something, let's say I don't know, you're like, no, the next season starts on the 25th. I'm like, it's the 24th. It's a Tuesday. It's always a Tuesday. And if you're like, yeah, right, and then you leave because, you know, the voice in your head is telling you, like, you're, you know, being all doubtful, and my voice is telling you that you're wrong, right? Then I can look at that and go, huh, okay, he wasn't just leaving because he, you know, because he had a headache. He was leaving because whatever, and then I can communicate with you, and you'll be like, oh, it's fine, like, I was wrong, or I whatever. Like, it just, you have to use that. It's like, fear isn't bad, doubt isn't bad, innately bad. Like, if you can use them to be aware of a situation and be mindful of it, great, right? And that,
we feel these things for a reason. They're there to help us. Every emotion you feel, we've evolved for a reason. They aren't randomly given to us. These things serve a purpose. It's just in some people, these things go the other way. I know people who go the complete opposite. They're the opposite to me. And that's more like Talmon, where you get one voice instead of many voices. But they're so far across the hyped up super duper. Like, they can't view the world realistically because everything's like ultra happy for them. And it's their coping mechanism. And it's
Right.
Well,
I always
yeah.
find those people difficult because I can't relate to it because
Yeah. Well, and that could
it's
be
one of those weird things.
Yeah.
that could be just as dangerous, I would imagine. I mean, it's like it's like the condition.
Toxic positivity.
Yeah, it's like the condition where you don't feel pain, and people are like, "Oh, that'd be so good," and you're like, "Yeah," until you burn your hand on the stove, because you don't feel
Right, you
pain,
get third degree
right?
burns, or
You
break all of your bones.
yeah, you get sunburn and you don't even realize it, like stuff like that.
It's like you give those people something that makes them feel good, they're going to take loads of it. So they can have problems with addictions because addictions make you feel good, and they can really go to the full extremes and be hardcore for it. It's the best, and you are right, Kaz, it's empathy, it's not sympathy. And the best description I have ever heard for this, and I use it all the time, right? The way to imagine it is sympathy is this: you're walking along, you see a hole in the ground, it's a deep hole, and I'm at the bottom of the hole and I can't get out the hole. So you start to feel sympathy, and you're sorry for me, and you're trying to help me, and you don't know what to do. Well, what happens is eventually, before you know it, you're now in the bottom of the hole with me, and we're both stuck in the bottom of a hole. Right? Because that's what sympathy is. Sympathy is feeling exactly what that person's feeling. But you walk along, you see me in the hole, and you empathize, then you understand that I've got a problem. You understand that I'm at a disadvantage and I need help. And what happens is you find a ladder.
Rope.
Yeah, you throw down a rope, you put down a ladder, and you help me out. That's empathy. Empathy is going, I understand you've got a problem. I understand it impacts you. How do we fix it? And it's why I do what I do for a living. It's why I fix PCs, because I'm good at that. I'm good at empathizing. I'm good at understanding where people are coming from. One of the few weird positives from having a head full of voices is very, very easy for me to put myself in someone else's shoes and do the whole clone thing. So it's very easy for me to understand how somebody can't use a PC. So when someone's going, I'm trying to do this, and I really just don't, I can transfer myself into that position and go, right, okay, this is their level of skill. They need me to speak in this manner, and they need me to do it this way. And and it all comes from empathies. And you guys are all great. Don't think I come in this chat and I'm hiding this stuff because I don't think you can cope with it. Unless it's brought up and the game literally brought it up. I don't talk about it because I don't think about it. I'm not used to it. I just deal with it.
Yeah.
It's
Right. Same here.
It's not that I don't. It's not that I don't want to speak to you or I'm worried to speak to you. I've just reached a point where I'm like, it is who I am. It's how my life works, and I've learned to work. I've learned to fix the things I can fix, and I've learned to work around the things I can't fix.
I've kind of just said something similar in chat. I said, not every stream is going to be this eye-opening, but the window for conversation is always open, right? It's just like
Yeah.
we might move it to a time that's better for it, right? Like if I'm teaching someone how to do a dungeon and you want to have a serious talk on this kind of stuff, we might just need to put that on the table until the dungeon is done or whatever, because, you know. But the window
Yeah,
is
absolutely.
the window is always open. I mean, and I want that clear for everybody in the chat as well. Like we do try to foster a community where you can share if you need to. There's certain limits, right? I've had people come here and say all kinds of things, and I go, you need to find people physically in your life who can help you with that, because I can give you all the support and advice I can, but I'm a voice. I'm a pixel, you know. I'm not a guidance
Right.
counselor. I'm not a counselor. I'm not a parent. You know. So
We're not professionals here,
yeah,
but we're happy to listen.
that too, right? It's just like you can't. You have to know what the boundaries of the situation, and we can always push beyond them a little bit, but they do exist for a reason as well.
Well, that's why
There was
we always
something-
advocate, though. Yeah, go for it. Sorry, Tom.
There was something that I also wanted to mention as well, kind of going back to talking about things that people say or do, you know, neurotypical people who try to sympathize or empathize with us, but they end up saying, you know, kind of the wrong thing. One of the biggest things, at least for me, now again, this is different for everyone, but one of the biggest things for me is when people try to use those stereotypical platitudes like, "Oh, it'll get better. Don't worry. Just smile." You know, there's always other fish in the sea, kind of things, stuff like that. That just, for me, that shuts me down. So, like, if I'm having struggles with, say, an interpersonal relationship and someone tries to tell me, "Oh, well, you know, there's always other fish in the sea, you're really pretty, blah, blah, blah," that shuts, in my case, it shuts me down, and it makes me less want to talk with someone about that kind of stuff. Because it's like we're programmed, you know, socially we're programmed to say things and to try and, you know, build up the people that we care about and that's one of the things that we're taught to say to people to try and make them feel better. But at the same time, with someone like myself who struggles with those kinds of things daily, and that self-reflection and self-worth and self-confidence and stuff like that, all that does is, and I'm sure other people have said stuff like this on Twitter, and you might, you know, come across it every once in a while. That kind of stuff actually turns us off. So we're less inclined to talk with someone who's trying to make those kinds of platitudes for us, because it's like they're ignoring our struggle. One of the most important things you can say to someone who deals with any sort of depression or bipolar or anything like that, self-esteem issues, is not "it'll get better," but "I understand your feelings are real for you and they're valid for you." Really recognizing that what that person is struggling through is real for them and that their feelings are valid, and you recognize that. You know, it makes them more likely to open up and just leave it at that. Just be like, you know, "I understand that's real for you, and I'm sorry that you're going through that. What you're feeling is valid." But don't try to push them to talk to you when they're right in the middle of an episode.
Yeah.
Because that's the worst thing you can do. All right, I'm sorry. I'm going to have to interrupt myself real quick. My food is here.
I'll be honest, they're one of the most annoying types of people in the world, for people like me, is the person who tries to force you to talk about it. Like, "I understand, I know you're going through a hard thing, now tell me all about it and I'll make it better." It's like, that's not how it works. But tell me anyway. No, it's not how it works. You don't get to demand. I'm not a performance seal. There's nothing you can say that other people haven't said. What's in my head is in my head. It is what it is. But you do get some people who just they decide that they're the one that can fix you.
Yeah.
And instead of recognizing that you don't need fixing, you need helping on occasion. You need assistance. You need understanding. What you don't need is someone who goes, "I can fix you." Let's say it's weird because again, for the most part, it comes from a good place.
Mm-hmm.
But you know, nobody likes to be told that what they're feeling's wrong. Nobody likes to be told that what they're feeling's valid. I've had people tell me that because I've got fibro and it enhances how I feel pain, that I'm not really supposed to react to pain as though it's a problem because I'm used to it because I'm always in pain. Like, well, how do you figure that? And it's like, well, and they have the attitude of like, if they're in pain, their pain is more than mine because I'm used to it, and my half of my pain is not real pain. It's like, it doesn't stop it then. It doesn't magically mean that I'm feeling less. I'm still feeling more pain than you. And you know, the way my condition works is, if you imagine someone took a pin and stuck it in my finger and in your finger, your nerve, and I'm simplifying this a lot, Jack, because it doesn't really work this way. But imagine they do, and what you get is you get one nerve that goes, "Oh, something's just pricked my finger. Something's just pricked you in the end of the finger. Watch what you're doing." With fibro, I get anywhere from 2 to 5 needles telling me something's just stabbed me in the hand, because it overreacts and goes, "Ooh, something's just took the end of your finger off." And it hasn't, but it doesn't change the fact that the pain I'm feeling really thinks it has. And you get people who think that they can make you feel better by going, "It's not real though, so you don't have to worry about it." Oh, gee, thanks for that. I'll remember that the next time I'm in agony, that it's not real.
Now, if they said it in Ewan McGregor's voice or Alec Guinness's voice, maybe they're just trying to pull a Jedi mind trick on you. Is that the nerve endings?
But...
you don't feel these feelings.
That is not the pain you were looking for.
You can go about your business.
And it's weird when you've got mental health issues. When you've got a disability, I'm really lucky. My disability is invisible. Disability, if you've got disabilities, it makes your life hard. You get looked at differently. You get treated differently.
Yeah.
And it's just, you know, you guys are all great. You're all asking the right questions. You've all sat going, well, you know, how can I help people in this situation? How do I recognize it? It's hard because those of us who live with it long enough are good at hiding it so you don't know. Yeah. I understand my own triggers. Yeah, I understand my own triggers. There's times when I don't come into the stream and I don't join the party with Kaz because I'm just not in a good space. So I just don't bother because I know it's not going to be. I know I'm not going to be great company, and I don't want to bring everyone down. So I just think, well, I won't bother. So you just don't see the bad part of it because I tend not to be here for the bad part of it because I'm used to dealing with it. If I get really, really bad, I go and speak to Lynn. And she either gives me a cuddle and tells me I'll be alright, or she tells me to shut up being an idiot, whichever one I need. And sometimes I genuinely need her to go, "Shut up, you are being an idiot." And, you know, she's really good at that, and she's like my anchor point to everything.
Yeah, so that's the important thing for us, is having people who are able to do that kind of stuff and be like, yeah, you know, okay, you're going through something bad, all right, let's help you out, or, you know, you're being stupid and kick us in the butt.
Yeah. That's kind of how you ground yourself. You ground yourself to your anchor points, and your anchor points are the people that can bring you down in whatever fashion has got you. Whatever's knocking you is they're the person who can help key into that. there are times when I literally come into the chat because I know just sitting listening to Kaz reading law is going to mellow me out because I can disconnect. I just stop focusing. I listen to what he's saying, and my mind settles itself down. Because sometimes that's just what I need, something to focus on.
Yep.
You know.
Same
So,
here.
Like, you again, you don't really get to see that, guys, because I don't really talk about it. But sometimes I'm in here because it mellows me out. It's I've had a bad day and I'm tired and I'm stressed and I just want to be left alone. And it's like, actually, I'll go and do some stuff. And it's like you said, we do the PvE stuff all the time. Me and you don't think about it anymore. We just do it. We go into combat and we play for fun and we relax. So you're one of the anchor points because I can come in here and join the chat and do whatever and know that I'm in a good place and I can relax that and be as involved or as uninvolved as I want. You're not going to judge. You're not going to care. You're going to continue on as you do with the stream, and you know, it's kind of how things work. It's just you just when you got mental health issues, you do just sort of learn to just go. I'm not going to bother telling people because it's unless it comes up in a situation like this where there's no way to bring up what I suffer in polite conversation. If I'm honest. There's no real way you can walk up to someone and go, just so you know, we've been friends for a month now, and I hear your voice in my head.
Yeah.
People go, okay,
right.
Yeah, let's distance, shall we?
But on that note,
Yeah.
I do wish that these kinds of conversations, on any regard, mental, physical, emotional, spiritual, I wish that they came up more often. People brought them up. In the chat, one of the things that has been talked about is like the idea of like automated messages, you know, hey, what's going on? Not much. How are you? Good. Can't complain. Like, and nothing valuable has been exchanged there, right? And there's a, you know, there is a positive in that. It's a comfortable, it's an understood, you know, way of communicating. And not every conversation needs to start with like intense emotional or intense revelatory conversation. But I feel like, I don't know, I honestly feel like the more of this kind of stuff I hear, the more prepared I am for any of it. And again, as an outside example, you know, I grew up reading and watching fantasy and science fiction. So crazy ideas are not crazy to me anymore. So now when you watch a television show and they're like, oh, time travel, oh, cloning, you're like, yeah, okay, that makes sense to me. And I feel like that with a lot of other social issues. I feel like that when I've heard people. So, you know, now if somebody comes to me tomorrow and they say, you know, oh, I hear voices in my head all the time, I'll be like, oh, okay. Thank you for telling me. What kind of voices? If someone came to me tomorrow and was like, every time I look at a sandwich, I hear like the voice of my uncle or something, I'd be like, oh, that's interesting. Like I feel like the more that people are exposed to these different thoughts, the more that membrane, it's like a rubber band, it'll stretch, the elastic of acceptance or perspective, it widens to the point where you can have that kind of conversation. And coming back to what we were talking about, automated messages, my friend Alex. So Alex, chat, I talk about him a lot. My friend Alex is a very intense person. He can be very calming, but he is a very intense person. He's very out there. And a while ago, he really committed to not conversing in that automated way. So you're never going to hear him like go, hey, what's Alex? What's going on? Not much, man. Like, you won't hear that from him. If you're like, hey, Alex, what's going on? He'll be like, oh, I just started this new diet. It's doing wonders for me, but it's really throwing off my sleep pattern. How are you? Like, very genuine, forthcoming, you know, whatever. And I feel like if more people had conversations like these, then it wouldn't be so bad. Because if you have something that is altering your perception or something that you're dealing with all the time that you feel that other people may benefit from knowing, I mean, you just said like, oh, I'm not going to come up to you and be like, oh, you've known me for a while now, by the way, I hear your voice in my head. But honestly, if I was working with you at your company, and you came to me after knowing me for a short time and said that, I mean, now I've had this conversation. It's a lot more open and helpful, but it would be great if you could have that conversation and they can go, "Oh, is that why you did this?" And you're like, "Yeah." And they could go, "Oh, okay." And then, like you can understand each other. Like my point is that people need to be a bit more open on these things for a number of reasons. Again, human common decency, synergy, cooperation, fascination. I mean, not that I'm making light of anything here, but just learning how other people see things differently is truly interesting. It's fascinating. And, as you become an adult, one of the responsibilities you have to yourself and to everyone else is to take things that you look at that you assume are just static blocks of truth and just kind of turn them over and be like, what's under here? Oh, my history books tell me this. Let me do a little digging. Oh, I've learned more dirt. But and you get into more nuanced, and it's not always bad. Sometimes it's, or sometimes it starts bad and then it goes better. Like you might learn about how, the founding of your country went, and it isn't as good as you learned in school. But you also learn about a lot of the good that's been done as well. So I just feel like, I know it's it in itself is a platitude to be like, I just wish people were more open about it. Like, not as in telling, but as in listening. But I do wish that more people were willing to listen to things that are very different from themselves, very unique, outside their comfort zone, for any subject. I mean, real stuff like we're talking about now, or anything else, because it makes you stronger if you're able to stretch that membrane of what you encounter and what you're capable of imagining and accepting. I don't know.
It's kind of like what you're trying to do is you kind of got to imagine. This is going to be a couple of weird analogies initially. I can't really help it, but it's like trying to be a sculptor, right? You get a block, and what you're trying to do is come up with a final shape, and you only do that. And a lot of sculptors say this. They don't come up with what's in the sculpture. The sculpture comes up with what's there. They just find it. They find the shape that's already in there. Because it grows and it develops as they work on it and they shape it. It begins to take a form that is not necessarily what they assumed. And that is, if you open your mind to it, every person you meet is an unfinished sculpture in your world and your world alone, right? And like, as proof of that, none of you knew about the voice stuff in my head. Right, but now that you do, now that you understand what it is and how it works and what it does, the sculpture of me in your world has changed permanently. It'll never go. You can't put back what's just been taken away, because it's become more defined.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, it enables you to see me better. It enables you to understand the person that I am better.
Exactly.
So when I'm always upbeat and when I'm always like, it'll be all right, don't worry about it, you can understand where that's coming from. Because you see that, the conflicts are going. The problem is, and there is a problem, the problem with that sculpting is, it's like looking up at the sky on a night. Right? So, for example, guys, me, you, Talman, we're all stood in the same place, and we all look up at the sky. What's the first thing you're going to look at? And what's the thought process as to why you look at it?
Stars, and then probably how clear the night is. Just off the top of my head.
What's the first thing you'd look at, Talman?
The moon.
And why?
Because I'm Wiccan and I like to know what the moon phase is.
First thing I look for? Patterns.
Ooh.
Mm-hmm.
I look for patterns in the stars because my brain is drawn to patterns. I love patterns. I love shapes. I like the constellations. It brings me peace to see a pattern, to see a logic to things. Right? We're three people who all know each other, but if I didn't tell you that when I look up at the same patch of sky that you look at, that I look for patterns and I look for constellations that I can recognize and shapes that I can recognize, you're just gonna, your first assumption is quite rightly, he's looking at the stars and he's looking at how clear the night is. Or Six is looking at the moon like me because the moon's awesome. Look at how bright it is. Look at how amazing it is. If I don't tell you that, no, I don't look at that, and I don't care about how clear the night is. Do you see that set of stars over there that kind of looks like a U, and that one over there that kind of looks like an X? Isn't that pretty cool? Do you know what I mean? It's like you're trying to sculpt the biggest thing you've ever seen, and you only ever get little bits of information, and it's really hard. And I know they're weird analogies, and I am sorry, but that's the expanse of trying to figure out who a person is. And it's only by being open that you learn more. But some of the things people need to be open about you need a way of bringing it around, of creating an avenue for that conversation. Because you're fairly, and this is a compliment, it genuinely is, don't think it's not. You're one of the few unique people. If I came up to you and went, Kaz, we've been friends for about a month now, and we've been playing a bit of Crucible and a lot of Gambit, and I hear yours and Water's voices in my head now, you would be like, really? How? Is there a reason? Because that's who you are.
Yeah.
You're able to logically go, that's interesting. I don't do that. I wonder why he does that. The vast majority of people go, okay, yeah, I've got to go, Six. See you later. Bump.
Insert Homer Simpson backing into a Bush meme here, you know?
Yeah.
I like,
Well, and I will
say
say about myself personally that one of the good things about me, and I'm gonna brag to open a window, but one of the good things about me is that I do have a very strong filter between internal and external, and between emotions and everything else. For me, the very center, the very like headquarters, the battle bridge, whatever you want to call it, the center of me is a logical control center, and emotions are like, I don't know. Another analogy would be that everything about me is vanilla, and my emotions are butterscotch rippling, right? So the good thing about that is you could literally walk up to me right now and go, I hate you. I hate your face. I hate your voice. I hate your stream. I hate your... Like, you could just do all that stuff, and I won't feel it. I won't feel it right away. I'm gonna want to know why. And then once I learn all that I can, maybe later I'll feel it. Like, if you come up to me and you say all this stuff, and then I ask you a bunch of questions, and you're like... And you give me a bunch of, like, either emotional or logical reasons as to why you say what you say, then later I may choose how to feel about it. Am I gonna refute it? Am I gonna embrace it? Am I gonna be angry about it? And I think that the good thing about that is that it does make me a bit more open, because I'm a bit of a, not a blank slate, I guess, but it's just like I'm not gonna react. I mean, maybe I will. We all have like idiosyncrasies and biases and limited perspectives, but I think a good thing about that is that you can be very open with me. And personally, my motto is honesty, 100% right away. If I always want to know. I've always told people I would rather know right away. Whenever you watch a TV show and they're like, oh, I need to protect their feelings. No, never protect my feelings. Just tell me. Even if you communicated poorly and then later you need to like find a better way of saying it, I'd still rather know from the beginning, personally, if possible. I mean, I'm not forcing anyone to do anything. If you're not comfortable, then don't. But the good news is that if you ever need to, the window is open. I am always ready to hear the truth, whatever it happens to be. So, I don't know.
No, it's just, the thing is the same group of people that if I went, I hear your voice in my head after a month, who would panic and go, right, okay, I'm not speaking to him anymore. You play that game, if they see this game being played and I went, I hear voices in my head because I know you, people are like, really? Wow. And And it's like, and it sounds so trivial. And again, some of the stuff I say in a trivial manner. It's not meant in a trivial manner. It's just I happen to know it's true.
Mm-hmm.
I
No,
know
no,
that
you're right. I mean, most people can't. Most people, you're absolutely right. Is most people don't. They can't prepare for that. They have a worldview. They have they have a perspective, and if you come outside of it, it's like it's rocking the boat. It's
Yeah.
it's coming at them from a different angle. You blindside them with it. It just and that's not necessarily a bad thing. It's just the way that some people are, and just as we want them to be more open, we also have to be sometimes considerate as to how to present the information, right? Like in a perfect world, you could just say whatever you want, as long as you're being respectful about it, and everybody will go along with it. But that's how conversation works. It's like, this person may not be ready to hear my truth, and the other person goes, this person needs to communicate their truth. I need to make myself more ready, right?
Well, yeah, and I mean, if you think about it, right, media is part of the issue, right? Social media, movies, games, TV shows, books. In all of those things, when somebody comes up to you and goes, "I hear your voice in my head," that's the clue when the heroine or the hero of the film or the show runs the other way quickly.
Yeah.
Like,
Yep.
And again, that's nobody's fault. It's like it's one of these things where you grow up and you see it in the news. Like, the media don't make this stuff up. We all know serial killers exist, and we all know they're weird, and we all know they have weird quirks and problems and mental health issues. And the likes of Ted Bundy, who looks so normal, no one could figure it out. And it's like, sometimes to talk about real mental health, like the deep inside mental health stuff, you need an opening. And one of the things this game does is give you an opening, because it's such a weird game, and it's all about mental health, and it's all about what it's like to hear constant voices in your head going, "Yeah, you can," "No, you can't."
Well, it's
and it opens it up. But when I say I hear voices and that game's being played and you're all playing it, suddenly you're like, really? Wow. Okay. How does that work?
Yeah. I mean,
because your eyes are open to it.
Exactly that, Six.
Yeah.
I mean, heck, I played it on my YouTube, and like the majority of my playthrough was talking about my own issues and how the game is paralleled to my life.
Yeah. I mean, media has a two-pronged, like a bi-directional way of helping, right? There's the way you just mentioned of representation and that's me, or yes, that's exactly what I'm saying, like and at the same time it exposes other people to these ideas, and they don't experience them. I mean,
but it also perpetuates stigma.
Well, that's it. If it's not done
That's
right,
the other thing.
if it's not done right, or if it's done in a limited way, it can reinforce these problems or these stereotypes or what have you. But it's amazing. It's amazing when it's done right. I mean, I always, sure, if my mom were in the chat, she'd be like, "Hey, I helped," and she did. But I always attribute at least a kernel of like my open-mindedness to the fact that I grew up watching Star Trek. Now, Star Trek has problems like any piece of media, but it also comes from a place of trying to represent and demonstrate and present different ideas, cultures, beliefs, backgrounds, acceptance, inclusivity, stuff like that. And because of that, I feel like that helped form a base in my mind where I was used to these ideas, like, oh, they're different, they look different, or it doesn't matter as long as we work together, and like, obviously a lot of other stuff in the last like 30 years has helped build on top of that. But that's why representational media and media made by a variety of backgrounds and stuff, that's why that matters. Because I mean, yeah, you're gonna, if you're not exposed to it, you can't you can be only so open-minded about something. And even if you're open-minded, if you have no experience with it, you might be open-minded, but you have there's nothing there. There's no substance behind it, right?
Well, yeah, I mean, we're shaped by what we see. We're shaped by how the things that we see affect us positively and negatively.
Mm-hmm.
I learned what it is to be a man, not because I had a man in my life who showed me, but because I had so many wrong men in my life that I learned the things you don't do as a man. I learned that men don't hit women. I learned that real men don't hit women. They don't degrade women. They don't put women down. They do their best to support them in everything. A real man puts his kids before himself. You know, when he's got a family, he's bottom of the pile. And I learned all that because I had so many negative things. But I watched Star Trek, and there were positive role models in there. James T. Kirk, is a good role model. Captain Picard is an amazing role model. And because I had no positive figures in my life, TV gave me these figures. TV gave me the people that went, this is what it means to be a good person. This is what it means to be a man. This is how you should function. And I watch all these shows where and my love of anti-heroes, I watch shows where the good guy's not necessarily always great, but he's always focused. Knight Rider and stuff like that were big influences for me. You know, Michael Knight goes around and he finds somebody in trouble and he's like, I'm gonna make things better for you. I'm gonna do the right thing. And stuff like that shaped me. Star Trek made me realize that there's other things out there than what I was accustomed to, and to be open to it, and to try and understand it and learn it. It's where my love of patterns and logic comes from. Is the almost data, like trying to understand how people work. Like, I don't understand family units. I still don't to this day. It freaked me out. I can't get it. I don't know how you do it. I can't grasp the concept in my head. I struggle with it all the time. I have my family. I have Lynn and I have Millie and I have Lynn's mum and dad, and I'll do anything for them. But the concept beyond that, no, I don't get that. Well, like, you know, this whole, it's your cousin, and yeah, they're a bit of an idiot, but you've got to let it go. No, I don't. Well, you do, because the family, I don't care. They're an idiot. I'm going to pull them on it. Like, I can't do that dynamic because I've got nothing to understand it, so I don't do it.
To be fair, culturally, you're already set up to be like that anyway.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah.
Your cousin's a right idiot. It's like, yeah.
And it's, you know, there's aspects of things that I'll never fully understand, but I'm logically able to work through it and go, yeah, I know what it is. It doesn't click for me, and that's fine.
Right.
You know, I'm great with you guys on chat. If you all lived around the corner and went, Tony, are you going to come around? I'd be like, I mean, I could.
That sounds like me.
It's like you're all amazing, but if you live 5 minutes away and always wanted to see it, it's like, I can't be bothered.
Well, I mean,
I've got stuff to do.
I used to have so in university, I quickly became the host of all the parties. My room was always open, and people would always come by and hang out, and I was notorious for being able to do my calculus homework while people came over and socialized. But what I quickly learned is, you know, there are times where people want to be social, but also isolated. So we started this rule with our friend group. We would always create a place where you could be, like, we basically had 3 different areas in our parties. We had, like, the main open area where everybody's, like, you know, music and whatever. And then you had, like, a smaller area that was more kind of private conversations between people. And then there's literally, like, a closet where, you know, people could just go and sit there and in the dark and be quiet and not do anything, because they were like, you know what, I want to go out and see my friends for like 5 minutes, and then I want to sit here and say I was at the party, but not actually, like, in the party or whatever. And, you know, for everybody else, it was no problem. I mean, there were some people who might have been confused by it, like, what are they doing? Are they okay? And it's like, yeah, they're fine. They just need to be there. And once you accept that, you just move forward with it too. And that's another thing, both about conversations and.
That reminds me of a meme I saw the other day.
Oh.
Where where they were basically talking about how people, like to be social, but also be, separate. You sit next to each other and just not talk.
Mm-hmm.
It's a way to be social, but also, be separate.
Yeah, and I mean, once you open yourself up to these conversations, or once media represents it, it just becomes something that people can deal with. Like, if you're at a party and someone is like in another room and you've never seen that before, like locked themselves in a closet, you'd be like, oh my god, are they okay? Like, what's wrong? And as soon as someone goes, yeah, they're fine, they just need to be alone, usually the people, even the well-meaning people, are just like, oh, okay. Like, they just, it's kind of amazing how quickly you can accept something if it's laid down. I don't even know, like, either with confidence or conviction or experience or whatever. People are stubborn and they don't like to change, but also they can change very quickly on certain respects. And it's too complicated to really talk about at 1 o'clock in the morning for me, but like, it's interesting how you can do that. You can just move past it. You can expand someone's horizon immediately, and they can just accept it and move on. Not always, and
it's like explaining non-binary sexuality or sexual orientations to kids.
Yeah.
Well, Uncle John and Uncle Larry love each other the same way that Mom and I do. Oh, okay. So does that mean they're getting married? 9 times out of 10, a little kid will ask. Like, they just accept it and move on.
Marriage is a social construct, and it's start ripping into marriage on them. Like, oh
God, no.
With adults, as long as there's enough of a peer group that's big enough to go, yeah, man, it's fine, chill.
Yeah.
Go, all right then.
Yeah, that you can use that wanting to be normal against them, right? I want to be bigoted. No one around you wants to be bigoted. I want to not be bigoted, to be hanging out with the friend group.
And I'm about to move into a slightly dark subject, chap, but I'm sorry, but it highlights a point. It's an attitude that I spread because I want people to understand that we need to change how we think about these things. Now, they say that a child abuser's greatest power is the fear they have over kids. It isn't. I promise you it's not. Everyone thinks it is. Their strongest power, their biggest control method, it's got nothing to do with the fear they instill in their victims. It is in the mindset of the people that know them. And it's socially engineered on a massive level. And people are worried that if they know a child abuser, someone's going to think they're a child abuser. It's this whole, well, he's your friend, how did you not know? You must be involved. And that is not the case. Well, you stop and think about it.
That's a good point.
You know what I mean? When it's flagged out and you see this person, you go, my God, have you seen it? I cannot believe they did that. I just can't believe it. You don't look at all their family and friends and go, well, you were all in on it. You just look like you genuinely, when you stop and think about it properly, you think, how did people not see it? Like, how can we not see that? What are we missing? There's got to be something that we miss. Their strongest power is socially engineered adults, terrified that their social standing is going to be changed by knowing this person. And it sounds horrible, chat, and I know it does, but as a victim, I can tell you that the greatest power these people who hurt me got was nothing to do with my fear, because I was an arrogant, and I'm a dominant personality even as a kid. I told the police, I told teachers, I told family friends, I told anyone that would listen. Nobody wanted to believe it. Literally, I used to get beaten by my stepfather in the middle of the street in front of everybody. Nobody said a word because nobody was wanted to be impacted by the actual fact that they knew him and he was doing that. That was where his power came from. It wasn't my fear of him, because in the end I wasn't scared of him. In the end, I cried because I needed to release the tension and the stress, and obviously the pain they were inflicting. But even in the end, towards the end of it, by the time I was 14, my stepdad wouldn't lay a hand on me. He was terrified of me because he couldn't hurt me anymore. There was nothing he could do that could slow me or put me down, because he'd beaten me that much. I was inured to it. But the power for the mental side of it still continued, because that power came from no one believed me. Years later, after self-harming and dozens of other things, people still go, yeah, but he wasn't that bad. I still don't see it. It must be in your head. It's like, really? Like, even now, people who know my family will say that I'm lying about them.
Almost exactly word for word what my bio mom said when I told her about what my dad did to me.
It's social engineered, and it's because, and it's nobody's fault. It genuinely isn't. It's not. We're all controlled by this need to be accepted, to be it's not even necessarily to be normal, to not be stigmatized. Because the worry is, like, if this person if they think I'm an abuser, what happens if my boss finds out? What happens if the people I work with find out? What if the parents at school find out? Oh my God, what am I going to do? Like, I would never do that, but they're never going to let me near the kids. I might lose my job. These are genuinely real fears that you're entitled to fear, but the reality is, no one's going to think that of you. You might get a few people who do, but that'll settle, that'll calm down when they settle down and think about it and go, nah, they've never behaved like that, and they wouldn't do that. I know them well enough to know. And it's a dark subject, and I'm sorry I brought it up. And I know it's...
No, you're fine. Go on.
You know, social engineering is the societal engineering is the thing I despise the most about the modern world.
Yeah.
It's everywhere. Yeah. It's no matter where you go, you can't escape it. You can't run from it. You can't change it. It's everywhere. Women have to look this way. Men have to look that way. Children should wear this or eat. It's all social engineering. And if you don't do it, people look at you and go, "Why aren't you doing that?"
Yeah. So. Yep. So let me add on to that. I have not been in situations such as yours. Not even in a comparative front. No, I know. But I need to make it clear, because I'm going to say something that part of it is going to sound, I don't know, arrogant maybe. I'm a little tired, so my vocabulary might be a little less. But I've not been in a situation like that. I mean, like, I've had issues. My parents were kind of verbally, I don't know, what's a lighter word than abusive, but almost, but maybe.
Negative.
Yeah.
Negative, yeah.
Yeah. Very, there's some stuff there.
Non-sympathetic.
Just intense. My mom wears her emotions on her sleeve.
Negative.
and she just, and my dad doesn't know how to express any emotion other than rage once in a while. So, also, I am a straight white male, which is a song by Bo Burnham, and I recommend you listen to it. It's pretty funny. And because of that, I'm very privileged in a lot of ways. I can get away with more. I can do a lot of things. And I want to acknowledge that before I say what's about to come next. But there's a privilege in that. Right? I can afford to lose some reputation because societally I fit into a privileged tier. I could drop a few tiers and not, I don't have to worry about persecution. I don't have to worry as much about, even social media persecution. People aren't gonna, if I lost a football game in England, I wouldn't get a bunch of like racist messages sent to me. Go back to Poland or wherever, my ancestors are from. Right? I wouldn't get that. And as a man, I'm not going to get it for a lot of reasons, etc., etc. But also, I don't know what it is, but for a very long time, I have felt different. I think with my family immediately, my dad is very stoic. That's the best way to describe it. But the worst way to describe it is that, yeah, he doesn't express emotions or anything until he's been drinking. My mom is the opposite. My
Mm.
mom, you know, like I said to you before, there's a big barrier between my emotions and me. You sometimes, to a fault, you get me a gift, the perfect gift. I don't know. You allow me to meet Patrick Stewart. You're not going to know right away whether I liked it or not. Maybe. I'm getting better at it. But I used to be really bad at it. People used to wonder, like, does he actually like his Christmas presents? Oh, he loves it. But that's just what he's like. My mom's the opposite. My mom will she's a tornado, you know? And so for a long time when I was younger, I even thought I was adopted once or twice. Because, I mean, I think all kids maybe think that one, even it's a point of embarrassment. Like, I can't be your kid. You're too embarrassing. Can't believe you like Queen,
Right.
Mom. Yeah. So, but I thought that because my family was so much like that, and they were so in tune. Like, even my dad, like, he doesn't show his emotions, but when he's been drinking, he does. And they're very fast to be loud and emotional and to party, and I'm not. It takes a lot to get that out of me, right? So I've always felt different. So when I started getting and I spent a lot of time when I was younger around adults, so I had a hard time relating to people my own age. I would be the kid. They'd be like, "You want to talk about Pokemon?" I'm like, "I don't know what that is. Do you want to talk about something more mature?" Like, I just had a hard time relating to kids, and that carried through. So when I got to high school, I was already ostracized. Even without anyone knowing who I was, I already felt aloof and different. And I actually think that's a strength because of that and because of my privilege, personally, I have no, and also because of the fact I like truth and honesty right up front, I haven't been in a real situation where I've had to stand up to someone's oppressor on the street or someone's verbal abuser or physical abuser. So I can't say what I would really do in a bystander effect scenario. But for the most part, from most of the experiences that I have, I am a little bit more forward to jump up. I am a little bit less concerned with losing that reputation. I'm more concerned with like getting into what's going on rather than like what will people think about me. But I acknowledge that I'm not some kind of superhero. I'm not trying to brag or anything. I'm just saying that it's interesting that the being different part about me has given me a strength. It's given me, I already like, when I was in high school, there were times where I would do things like that. I would, bullies would be saying something and I would say something to them because I'm like, whatever, you already hate me anyway. I'm already different. I'm already different from you. I'm not accepted. So I can do whatever I can say this kind of stuff, and I thought about this on a micro level, peer pressure. Peer pressure doesn't really work on me, or at least it didn't when I was younger. People are like, oh, come on, like, people would like you more if you like drank and partied with us. Oh, so the only reason you're gonna like me is if I drink. Well, screw that. I'm not gonna drink. Like, and it was funny that already being kind of ostracized actually gave me an advantage where other people who so desperately wanted to fit in and to not be ostracized, they kind of and I'm not casting any judgment, and I'm not trying to say that like I'm so great and I have such a strong will or whatever. I've always personally found it fascinating that what is generally considered a weakness, which is, not quite fitting in with the group, to me gave me a strength. It gave me the excuse, the buffer and the barrier to just be like, no, that's fine. Oh, you think I'm weird? Okay. I used to walk around university wearing a cape. True story. I did that for years. Yeah. My mom made me a double-sided cape. Inside was red, outside was black. I didn't realize at the time that would make me look like a magician. I did it because I like Superman, so red on the outside, on one side, black on the other side, because black goes with everything. It's actually very cool. It's sewed into the collar line of a double-breasted jacket that she also made for me. So I had this like double-breasted kind of navy-looking short, not like a long naval jacket, but like one that goes down to my waist. And then underneath the collar of it was this invisible zipper that I could put a cape on it. And I used to walk around campus like that all the time. When I went on a school trip to Russia, I wore a cloak because I was already different. and I didn't care. Like, what are you gonna do? Double put me in the penalty box? Like, I don't care, you know. And it is interesting. It's always been very interesting to me that that thing that is normally considered a weakness, and like every piece of media, like, nobody liked him. He was outside the group. He had self-doubts over his ability to you know, what became a strength of mine, that I was able to just be like, well, they already think that anyway, so I can embrace that. And it's weird. It's weird.
Yes.
It's weird how I leapfrogged one problem by having a different one. Right. And I want to acknowledge that one, and I'm not saying I'm fatigued because I want to end the stream chat. I'm just saying that I pride myself on being very careful and articulate, but I'm tired, so I'm less. And I also acknowledge that, like, sometimes when I talk about this kind of stuff, I am excited to talk about myself or to relish something good, and it does sometimes come across like a brag, and so be it. Apologies, but yeah, I always found that interesting about myself, that like I already consider, and what that did later is when I started finding a friend group that accepted me. Well, then I put those two things together, and I was like, I gained a lot of confidence. I had no confidence in high school, but I had a kind of like apathetic confidence where it was like, I'm not confident enough to talk to you, to ask the girl out, to whatever. And unless it was in the classroom. I'm not going to ask a girl out in the classroom, but in the classroom, intelligence was my base stat. I was king in the classroom. Outside the classroom, I couldn't talk to you at all, and I wouldn't. But I also wouldn't start drinking or start doing whatever you wanted me to do to fit in, because I was like, you're not gonna accept me anyway, so I'm not gonna like do all these extra steps just to make no progress, right? But once I found the friend group that started accepting me, well, then it accelerated. I went from first year university, my best friend literally threw me into a table of people so I would talk to them. We were trying to find a place to sit in a crowded bar, and there was a table with some space. He's like, why don't you go ask them if you could sit with them? I don't know, they look busy, you know. And he literally threw me into their table so that I would be like, oh God, and then I started talking to them. To now, now I stream to you guys, and I don't do the face cam, not because I'm scared about it, maybe trying to save you a little bit of a horror show. No, but honestly, I don't do it because I'm lazy. The lighting is, I stream in the dark, but I'm super confident now. I could go to anyone. I could go to the president of the U.S. or France and tell them something. And I don't, like, again, I can do that because I have a point of privilege, right? What's going to happen to me? But I also think it's interesting how those experiences have shaped me. And I'm very fortunate that they have, because I get it. I get why you would be afraid of that. But I also hate that. I also hate that happened to you, Six, that the people were like that. The bystander effect is one of the most annoying things to me, you know, where it's like you see something is wrong and you know it's wrong, just fix it. It's actually a reason why I probably couldn't live in your country, to be honest, because the whole stiff upper lip, but also I've talked with some other English people, and they're like, you know, a very common thing would be to go to the grocery store, and it's 12 items or less, and Mr. Rogers comes in with 15 items, and everybody in line just and they just kind of him and haw in their brain, right? And call it the North American in me to be a bit more forthright, but I would totally be like, you know, if they brought in like 30 items, I'd be like, it's 12 items or less.
Right?
You know,
wrong line, mate.
Yeah, sorry, but you're holding up the line for everyone else. And if I did that in England, I'd get shot or something, because like English people tend to be, they would rather complain in their heads, from what I've heard, right? They'd rather complain in their head. True. And I also understand, and I'm going off on a few tangents here, whatever. My stream, no, but
it is your stream.
I know that now, like being with yeah, little shoe bears, like the correct response is to tut inside. No, and here's the thing: there's a difference between Europeans, and I'm putting England in there. Sorry, Brexit, but between Europeans and North Americans, and neither are right and neither are wrong. North Americans are loud, they're forthright, sometimes they're very fake emotionally, right? Like Six was talking about the whole service industry. It's like, hi, how are you? How can I help you? Right? You don't get that in France. In France, like, they all have a job and they do it, and that's it. There's no tips, there's no tax, like the taxes are baked into the prices, right? And in North America, it's the opposite. You got to be like kindness itself just to get paid enough, and you know, all this sincerity and stuff like that. And I know that North Americans, you know, I say North Americans because I'm Canadian, so I'm not just going to blame it all on Americans. But I know that North Americans are more loud and forthright about this kind of stuff. And usually Europeans are like, don't make a scene. Just shh. No. And neither are right or neither are wrong. Like, Americans and Canadians, you need to quiet down. But Europeans, it's okay. It's okay for you to say, hey, buddy, 30 items. You have now inconvenienced a line of people. Did you willingly do this? Was it an accident? If you had a long day? Did you forget fractions when you were a kid? Like, come on, right? There is a way to address these things in a polite but still moving forward way. And it's actually, personally, it's been a bit of a problem here because I live in France. I don't speak the language extremely well, and my fiance doesn't like to create that kind of situation. She feels the same frustration as I do, but she doesn't like socializing. She doesn't like to make a scene. And I am so looking forward to the day when I am like fluent in French, because then I can say in a very calm, but in like, I could just say, excuse me, sir, but you have too many items for this line. You're kind of holding up the line here, right? I can't do that in French. I don't have the subtlety. I'm wielding a hammer, not a scalpel. But anyway, very weird tangent aside. Just a lot of like errant thoughts that are like floating around. Lil Bear says, I let someone call me the wrong name for 4 years because it got to the stage where I was too embarrassed to correct her. I understand that completely, and I've been there. Again, when I was younger, I
Right. I'm gonna have to drop off, chat. It's been a pleasure. Feel free if you have questions about anything I've said, just ask away. Just message me and I'll get back to you.
Yeah,
as and when I can.
Thank you for sharing. Thank you for being honest. Yes. and jumping in and communicating, and helping us to just to understand. It's it's a big thing. Don't see it as something small, right? Like it's significant. So thank you.
You're welcome, honestly. But you see why I said I couldn't type it.
Mm-hmm.
Very hard to translate that into words without speaking to people. But yeah, if any of you have any questions, just feel free. Honestly, there's nothing you can ask me that I'm going to be offended by.
Yep.
You'll either ask a question I don't want to answer, and I'll tell you I don't want to answer, or I'll answer it. So
yeah,
don't worry about upsetting me or hurting my feelings. It ain't going to happen. And I shall catch you all tomorrow.
Thanks, Six. Have a good night.
Good night, Six.
Yeah,
I'm actually gonna hop off here too, because I gotta work on some stuffs, and I have dinner waiting for me. So.
Getting cold, I suspect.
Hopefully not too cold. It's pizza. It's still in the box. So.
Nice. Well, thank you too, Tom Mom. Appreciate it.
Yes.
Always appreciate your perspective, your communication, your honesty, and just for bearing with me while I try to open my mind, navigate this path, speak clearly.
Well, I think you did a great job, and the chat has been amazing, and it's really appreciative, not just for you, but for everyone, for just being willing to listen to us. Yeah. So it's really appreciated.
No, it's been good. So, all right, go enjoy your pizza. Probably gonna wrap up the stream soon anyway. Thank you, Tire Mom.
Yeah, of course. Have a good night, on.
Yeah. I had a slight point I wanted to make at the end of that, and I forgot because I'm getting fatigued. It was something about that point about just not letting. Oh, what I was gonna say, yeah, what I was gonna say is that to your point, little she bear, what I've actually learned how to do is I've learned how to incorporate little, like, almost self-deprecating, but like relatable excuses that let me get away with doing things that are slightly embarrassing without really losing too much face or reputation. Right? So you mentioned about the person calling you the wrong name or whatever, right? Um, Sometimes what I do, this happens to me a lot actually. People, uh, I have a unique first name. It's Dallas. Dallas is my first name. Like the city, like the Cowboys, you know. And it's unique. And what happens is, I also have long hair, and I'm in a profession that's usually full of older white men with short hair. So what happens is a lot of people remember me. Whether I've made an impression or not, they remember me because I have a unique name and I have a unique look. And they'll come up to me and they'll be like, "Oh," they'll start talking to me like they know me. Because yeah, it turns out we've had a conversation before, or we've had a few. But I'm usually really good at that kind of stuff, like memory, but not always with people, right? Like I remember the conversation, but I might not remember their face. Or I remember their voice, but not their name, right? Well, normally in an embarrassing situation like that, if you don't remember a person's name, you just roll with it and you just hope to never have to use their name ever. What I've started learning how to do is just being able to address it. And then I usually use some kind of like quick semi self-deprecating thing that smooths it out. Like, you know, obviously if I've known someone for a very long time and I forget their name, it's harder to do something like that. But if it's in the beginning, I can say things like, I'm like, I'm really sorry, but can you tell me your name again? I know we've spoken before a few times through email and once in chat, but I've had a really long day and I just, right, Michael, okay, whatever, you know. And like, again, that's a tactic that's harder to use the longer it's been going on. And maybe it's not one you're going to use because, you know, depending on where you're from or your own tolerances, but I find there is a way that you can incorporate that. You know, you can incorporate kind of like, it's been a long day or it's been a stressful month or, you know, blah, blah, blah. There's ways that you can kind of get around the embarrassing problem of certain social guidelines just by kind of buttering the experience with relatable, I don't know, forgetfulness or whatever. Yeah. Fair enough. And I mean, yeah, me too. You know, and I probably, when I was younger, probably a lot less capable of this kind of thing. So, it doesn't work on a partner. I know I should know your name because I promised to love you forever, but it's just not clicking right now. Now, you know what you do in that situation, Viru? You're just like, well, you do one of two things. They're both the same, but they're slightly different. You either make a joke that they're just so beautiful that you're just blinded. Your memory is just obliterated by their beauty, by their sexiness. Or you do the same, but you say something like, "Why would I call you by your name?" By your name? Yeah, I mean, you have a beautiful name. Patricia? No, you have a beautiful name, but I'd rather call you, I don't know, sexy baby, or I don't want to be too like whatever. I'd rather call you a pumpkin, you know. Dear sweetheart, my little pumpkin. Yeah, exactly. There you go. I was watching the show Scrubs recently, and there's a character whose last name is Turk, and one of the other doctors keeps calling him Turkleton because he thinks that's his name. He thinks his name is Turk Turkleton. He's like, "You think that's my name? My name is Chris Turk." It's like, "No, I prefer Turkleton." Just made me laugh thinking about that just now. Well, okay. We've had a good night here. This has been great. We've had a couple of moments like these in our community. Not exactly like this, but moments where we've had a lot bigger and more serious conversation. Me too. Yeah, I'm bringing my fiance through it. She's never seen it before. Not really something they have on French TV. We're in season 4 right now, so we're around the time. Well, it doesn't matter. Anyway, yeah. This is another evening where we've had just another great set of conversations. As I said before earlier in the chat, I am incredibly honored that this is a place where that can happen. You know, again, it sounds a bit like a brag, and I'm sorry, but it's just I do try to set myself up to be open to that kind of thing. And I mean, thankfully, everybody who's here and is involved hasn't. I don't think there's a way to abuse it, but I do think there's a way to ignore when might be the best or the worst time to start talking about this kind of stuff. You know? By the way, the reason I have it advanced is because I was worried the game was going to, like, give me a lot of dialogue and fight scenes, and I didn't want to do that while, like, Six and Tower Mom were, you know, sharing their truths. So that's why I'm just kind of staying here in this, like, forest loading zone. I hope you understand. I mean, it's beautiful enough, right? So I don't think you've really had a problem, but just always want to make that clear. But yeah, people in our community have been great in not abusing that, right? Like when I'm trying to teach dungeons or I'm doing like some kind of lore topic, they're not going to come in and be like, so I have this kind of neurodivergence, right? Oh, Vero. Vero, have you ever heard of a YouTuber called ProZD? I'll tell you why when you let me know. Yeah, and I'm really glad that we can have these moments, and I'm glad that this game gave us the opportunity for it. I mean, I presume I'm halfway through, right? I have to fight 2 gods before I face the 3rd act, so it depends on what happens in Destiny tomorrow. I kind of suspect that like nothing is gonna happen. I don't think we're getting any story until the epilogue, and I don't think there's anything really new other than more Solstice. So maybe I'll just come back to this tomorrow, because I am enjoying it very much. Halfway through the 1st act. Okay. Yeah, I agree, Tyrell. Thank you. Tell me about that YouTuber with that video where he was made up cars. Very typical. Yeah. If you want, just for a treat later, you may have already seen it on my recommendation. Look up ProZ, like go to YouTube and look up ProZD when you have a really good something about like when you have really good hand of cards or you have a really good turn or something like that. You'll probably find the one I mean. He makes up a fake game, but it's all Magic rules, and it to anybody who plays Magic, you'll recognize it right away. It's very funny. Yes, exactly. That's exactly the one. Apologies for being repetitive, but it is. I still quote it. It's funny, and I've played Magic exactly once, just enough to know that it's very well done. His other work is great too. Don't get me wrong. Check out his other stuff. It's fantastic. Very funny. Very talented. Actually did the voice of Flack in Borderlands 3. I've never played, but there you go. Anyway, yeah, if Destiny is going to be the same old tomorrow, we'll probably be back to this game. Later in the week, we'll likely play some Dark Alliance, which is a Dungeons & Dragons game with our friends Six, and maybe with Alex and Marco, depending on their availability. And then maybe toward the end of the week, we'll do some more PvE help in Destiny. But yeah, tomorrow will likely be this, so if you want to have some more conversations like that, by all means, come on back. I am going to try to play the game tomorrow and continue forward that way, but if we need to stop the game to have a more serious conversation. I'm not adverse to that. So, yeah. So yeah, we'll probably start tomorrow around 9 o'clock Eastern. Sorry, nope, that's wrong. 3 p.m. Eastern, 3 or 4 p.m. Eastern, which is 8 p.m. UK time, I think. Yeah. So, and 9 p.m. for you and me, Vero. So thank you, everybody. I really appreciate your time. I appreciate your attention, your questions. I mean, we have a great community here. The conversation, the open-mindedness, the questions you guys are bringing up, it's very, very cool. I love streams like this. I mean, I love playing games and just like, playing around with mechanics and talking about story and stuff. But I really appreciate when we can just talk about whatever and be open. So, thanks everybody. I hope you have a good day, good night. We'll be back again tomorrow. Little She-Bear, it's nice hanging out with you a bit more. Like I said, I always appreciate just seeing and reading stuff on Twitter. You're kind of a little bit of an internet celebrity for me in a way. So I hope it was nice to have you in the chat. Can't promise we'll have this level of awesomeness every night, but the door is open. So thank you all, everybody, for watching. As always, be safe, be kind, and we'll see you all next time. Bye now.